This club has history with Rui Costa in the number 10, Batistuta up front, and now it's my turn to bring Fiorentina to the top of the footballing world. I've got 10 seasons to turn Fiorentina into the most reputable club on earth, not just win games, but to build a legacy. And here's the twist. I'm signing a Portuguese playmaker just like Rui Costa and an Argentinian striker for Batistuta, and if one of them wins the Ballon d'Or, that's the cherry on the top. We are also aiming for 4 Serie A titles, 2 Champions Leagues, and of course a climb to the top of world football. Can I pull it off? This is the Fiorentina rebuild. Season 1, day 1, and I've got a squad that's decent, but let's not kid ourselves, we need to start by improving this back line. So straight away I clocked it, we need a proper centre-back if we're going to build anything here. Somebody who doesn't crumble under the pressure or turn slower than a bus. Enter Per Schurz. He's big, he's composed, and he actually knows how to defend. £22 million from Torino, and it's going to be worth every penny if he keeps my goalkeeper from being too active this season. Tactics-wise, I'm going bold with a 4-3-3, but with 2 attacking midfielders and 1 from the wing, because if we're going to honour Rui Costa, we're going to do it in style. It's either going to be genius or suicidal, and we're about to find out. We kicked off the season flying, a couple of league wins, morale is through the roof, and we've even booked our spot in the Europa Conference League group stage. Now look, I know the mission is clear, a Portuguese magician at the number 10 and an Argentinian marksman up front, but let's be real, in season 1 there's no new gens yet, and the market's rather dry. That's a job for future me. Right now it's about laying the foundations, maybe even putting up a title push, secure Europe for each season, build a squad that doesn't fold every time they see Juventus on the calendar. And to be fair, we have started like a team possessed. We beat AC Milan 2-0, looked organised, dangerous, even efficient, and most importantly, we were secure at the back. By January 1st, we were actually top of the league, and in Europe, 6 games, 6 wins. The Conference League group stage was basically just a training drill. And leading the charge was this man, Albert Gudmundsson, who was easily our star man so far this season. Unfortunately, things dropped off by the end of January and we slipped off the top spot in the Serie A. The Coppa Italia semi-final. Well, it went to a penalty shootout against Salernitana that we lost in heartbreaking fashion. But we regrouped and we made it all the way to the Conference League final. Nottingham Forest was waiting for us though, and it's a proper chance at some silverware, because we ended the league campaign in 3rd place and 9 points behind champions AC Milan. So the conference final was our chance to shine and set us off to a great start. But we bottled it. A 2-0 loss, we barely showed up, and even Gudmundsson didn't perform for us in the final. However, 25 goals and 16 assists from attacking midfield, the guy absolutely carried us. And now we've got £55 million to spend this summer. Time to find a proper striker, and maybe we can start scouting for our Rui Costa regen or Batistuta 2.0. So season 1 does end in heartbreak, but trust me, I think we're building something here already. Season 2, and the heartbreak is still fresh, but now it's time to go again, and I've brought in some reinforcements. First up, Kenan Yildiz, £27 million from Juventus. He can play as a striker and can play in the number 10. He's also young and could potentially be somebody we develop and nurture until we find our Rui Costa or Batistuta. Next is Luis Suarez. No, not that one. It's the Colombian one. He's hungry, and if he scores 20 plus goals this season, I'll happily pretend he's the real deal. And finally, Henrik Mkhitaryan for just £1.1 million. He's a cracking player still and got more experience than half of my squad combined. The only thing that's more of a bargain than him is how cheap it is to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Only a few outgoings though, barely scraped £10 million together, no major losses, just trimming the fat. And how do we kick off the new campaign? It's a casual 3-1 win over Juventus, with Parixi, Amrabat and Keane all on the score sheet. A fantastic start and a statement been made. Hopefully it's a sign of things to come. So our Champions League debut then, not exactly dreamland, 3 wins from 8 in the league phase, just enough to scrape out of a knockout playoff spot. And yeah, we beat Juventus on the opening day, but since then they've remembered their Juventus, and after 22 matches they're top of the league. We're third, 5 points off. It's tight, but we're hanging on. Our new boys have been class though. Luis Suarez has hit 10 league goals already, 14 in all comps, not bad for the other Suarez. And Kenan Yildiz, he is an absolute baller. That number 10 role, it's his. Every time he gets the ball at his feet, it looks like something is about to happen. But then that's when things went bad again. Marseille folded us 5-1 on aggregate in the Champions League and just bullied us. And when we were licking our wounds, the Milan clubs were flying. Inter and AC took control in the league. Even Juve stayed ahead of us in 3rd place. And in the Coppa Italia, another semi-final, another knockout. This time, Roma did the job. So with only the league left to fight for, the boys pulled together. Big results, big moments, and by the final whistle of the season, we finished in 3rd place. Above Juventus, behind both Milan giants, the Champions League secured for next season again, and maybe some respect earned along the way. This team's not complete yet though, but the rebuild is real and we're only just getting started, and there's another £32 million in the transfer budget. The summer of Season 3 starts and we are on the hunt for our Rui Costa and Batistuta new gens, setting up our scouts in the respective countries. Looking at our side though and identifying our weaknesses this season, I think we need to improve the defensive midfielder positions. And so our first new signing through the door with Mads Bistrup, 24-year-old Danish midfielder that we signed from Salzburg for only 15 million. Which seen the exit of Mandragora, who we sold to Al Ahly for 25.5 million. He was joined by Sotil, who also went to Al Ahly shortly after for 20.5 million. That, as well as other transfers, mean we could spend big, so I brought in Anton Stack, another defensive midfielder, for 40.5 million from Hoffenheim. However, the biggest deal of the summer for us was bringing in Kelleher from Brentford as our new number 1 goalkeeper. Now that he's cost us a pretty fortune, but he is definitely a long-term upgrade at 26. Season number 3 kicked off with a bit of a wobble though. We smacked Atalanta 4-1, then immediately lost to Napoli in classic false hope. In Europe though, we looked strong. 4 wins from our first 5 matches in the Champions League phase, which is the best start we've had so far. But domestically, it's painful. We're 3rd after 14 games, which is great, but Juventus haven't lost a single match and we are miles off. One man carrying the weight though is Luis Suarez, 12 goals in 14 games. The guy's in beast mode at the beginning of the season. Then it all collapsed, 2 months of brutal form. We could not buy a win. Only 1 victory in January and it was in the cup, and we plummeted down to 7th place in the league and down to 15th in the Champions League rankings, in a proper crisis mode. But February and March, something seemed to click and we went unbeaten. Every single match, win after win. We climbed back to 2nd in the Serie A table, but the only problem was that Inter was still running away with it. And now we've been drawn against Real Madrid in the Champions League. And don't get me wrong, we gave it a good shot, but let's be honest, they're a different animal than us right now. 4-1 across both legs and we're out of the competition. But in the league, we keep pushing. Won every game right up until May, where we finally slipped against AC Milan. Still, we finished in 2nd place. Only Inter stood on our way and they were 8 points ahead of us. But we're getting closer. This season showed me one thing though. We've got some heart, we've got a little bit of depth, and now we just need that killer edge. This seems mental then, that before Season 4 kicked off, I decided to sell Goodmanson, someone who's been amazing for us so far on this journey, but we did get £44.5 million for him. New players are soon coming through the door though, with a total of £28.5 million in Gorna Duarte, Diallo and Galeno. And after months of scouting for our Batistuta new gen, I think my scouts have found an ideal candidate, and his name's close as well in Batista at Racing Club for £8 million. For now, I'm going to try and add him to my shortlist and keep a close eye on him, because instead we have just signed João Pedro from Brighton to kick off this season for us. And he immediately goes into the first team and creatively improves our attack, already providing a nice link up with his fellow strikers, getting 2 early assists. But Season 4 kicked off with a bit of a title race, but the difference was just one bad result, a loss to AC Milan, and just like that, they've got a game in hand and a chance to pull away from us. But still, We've got a new hero this season in João Pedro. We signed him to make an impact. Didn't expect him to lead the league in goals though by the halfway mark. He's got 12 in 21 league games and he's been ruthless, cold and efficient. The kind of striker we've needed since day one. But elsewhere, it's not been good. Knocked out of the Champions League by Lazio in the knockout playoff rounds in extra time nonetheless. And if that wasn't enough, AC Milan have also knocked us out of the Coppa Italia 2 in the quarter-final stage. So it all came down to the league. With 8 games left, we were 4 points behind AC Milan. No cups, no Europe, just a title race and a slim chance to flip it. But João Pedro kept shining, kept us alive, and then something strange began to happen. AC Milan began just dropping points every single game. And at the beginning of May, we beat AC Milan ourselves in a massively important game and in glorious fashion, as we were 2-0 down and we managed to pull it back with João Pedro being the man to clinch the winner. And they continued to drop points. We didn't. Week after week, we just kept grinding out results. 8 games, 8 wins, from 4 points behind to 6 points clear. And it was 4 seasons, countless setbacks, but we finally done it. Fiorentina are champions of Italy. It's a long way to go yet, but João Pedro is also the new Golden Boot winner for this season as well. And all in all, it's a great sign for things to come in Season 5. Of course, with the goals in mind after winning the league, it was time to try and find our future players, and Rodrigo Batista looks to be the perfect Batistuta new gen. But I haven't forgotten about Rui Costa, there's just not been a lot of options. I could have waited, but instead I decided to take the risk on a £19 million sign-in to get Rui Souza, again a very close name, who's 19. He doesn't look amazing just yet, but he can play further forward and has a great potential according to my scouts. Some might say it's a mistake, but those are the only 2 new faces this summer because it ate into most of my budget. And while Rui Silva might not get as much game time this season, Batista was given a chance early and he took it. And our Batistuta new gen was scoring 2 goals in his first 4 appearances for the club. The first half of the season though was practically spotless, a lot of draws but only 1 league loss by the end of January, and it was against Inter Milan, and still somehow we're 5 points behind them in the league. In Europe, we got past Arsenal in the round of 16 after a good league phase, which was no small feat, but up next, we've got Chelsea. And in the first leg, we edged even closer to a 7-goal thriller, 4-3, absolute chaos. But the second leg didn't exactly go to plan. Chelsea got the better of us, we're out 5-4 on aggregate, and it's gutting. And just when you think it couldn't get worse this season, Lazio knocked us out again, but this time in the Coppa Italia semi-final. End of March, it's Milan, Inter and us in a 3-horse race, but we're kind of trailing in third, again outside shot, just like last year. And Batista, well, he's not quite there yet. Only 11 goals all season with 4 games left. You see the flashes, the movement, the technique. He might be ready to lead the line very soon though. While Rui Souza has been enjoying his time in the under-20s, developing rather well also. The usual suspects on the pitch for the first team are still shining for us, just maybe not as bright as last year. And with 4 games to go, this time a miracle looks to be rather impossible, especially with a difficult run that we've got. However, despite our trophyless season and finishing in 5th place in the end, a shining light appears in our development centre. A young academy prospect who looks absolutely fantastic for just 16 years old. In Season 6, we sold a few players to build a bigger budget, including Anton Stack, who went to Al Ittihad for £47 million. At 30 years old now, and with Batista coming along, we also sold Luis Suarez for £20 million to Napoli. For players in, I signed another Portuguese attacking midfielder, but his potential kind of sucks. However, he was just a free transfer. I actually spent £30 million of my money on Marco Pellegrino from Atalanta, who is a very good left-sided Italian defender. He wasn't the only defender I signed though, as I also brought in a South African right back who looks to be an absolute bargain, as well as a Canadian centre back from Toronto FC who is only 20 years old and 6'11", which I believe is the tallest a player can be on Football Manager. Even still, because of the players we sold, we had a massive amount of transfer budget left to try and make a statement this summer. And I lined up one of the best young midfielders in the world in Warren Zaire-Emery for a deal that would cost over £100 million with add-ons, but will be so worth it with the talent he brings to the squad. I'm thinking going forward with my system too, adapting a 4-3-2-1 to have a winger and locking in players to play as many games as possible, including the 16-year-old Perotta, who I think can already make an impact. And didn't he just do that, scoring the opening goal of the campaign just 13 minutes into the first match against Monza to become Fiorentina's youngest ever goal scorer. He wasn't the only one that started well either, as in the first 4 matches in which we won all 4, both new signings and original players were scoring goals and on form. But how long could we sustain this, and would this lead to a trophy this season? Well, the early signs were glorious, and by the end of January we were joint top with Inter Milan and sit in 3rd place in the Champions League phase. Business is looking good. João Pedro kept on scoring goals, 18 in 23 games, and leading the Golden Boot race again in the Serie A. The Brazilian is a world-class talent at this point. And the kids we locked in, the ones we trusted, it's starting to pay off. They're stepping up and developing well with the exposure to first-team football. But then March hit. And so did Arsenal, round of 16 of the Champions League, and again we're out. Domestically, it started to slip away too. We lost 2-1 to Inter Milan. We also lost 3-2 to Bologna, and just like that, we're 6 points behind. We were really struggling to keep up with them in the table as the season progressed. We did, however, reach the Coppa Italia final after beating Napoli in the semi with an 8-1 second leg victory, coming from behind in the first leg. But guess who we had to face in the final? It's Inter Milan again. They wrapped up the league title 7 points clear, champions of Italy, and they deserved it. They were just far more consistent than what we were. But when the cup final came along, there was a lot of optimism, even despite going 1-0 down at half time. But we had the worst start possible in the second half and conceded a second. We weren't able to find the net ourselves until the 85th minute, and by then it was too late. Another shot at redemption against Inter Milan, but another 2-1 defeat. No fairy tales or trophies this time round. But we're not going empty-handed this season. Perotta, just 17 years old, was absolutely brilliant and has developed really well. Rui Souza now has 12 goals and 12 assists in his first season in the first team as well. And Batista, he's still getting there, still rotating in and out the side with João Pedro and Yildiz, but the growth is obvious. He's going to become our batter shooter. So no trophies in season number 6, but no regrets either, because this project isn't over yet. We are building a nice and young squad. The hunger is there, and now it's just about delivering. In season 7, it's all or nothing. Going into season 7, we're running out of seasons to win 2 Champions Leagues, and we need to win almost every Serie A title from here on out if we're going to complete our mission. So we need to lock in and make sure recruitment for this summer is great, and so a lot of players have been sold and moved on to increase our transfer budget to ultimately improve our squad. The best of business though was arguably bringing in the Ukrainian goalkeeper Trubin on a free transfer, which is why we sold Kelleher. A couple of young Italian players we've also added to the squad with Beraldi from Inter Milan, who cost £45 million, and Stefano Di Bella, who's going to be a rotational option in our attacking positions, from Como for £18 million. Sharifi came in as well as a really cheap centre-back left-footed option, but the big signing again cost over £120 million. It's an Egyptian left-back just 20 years old who already looks fantastic but can hopefully develop in the next 4 seasons to be the best in the world in this position. And he had a dream start in a Fiorentina shirt, scoring on his debut in a 1-1 draw against Torino. By the end of January, we are in 2nd place, but not to Inter or AC Milan, but to Roma. Yeah, didn't see that coming either. However, in Europe, it's the same story, different year. Spurs have knocked us out in the knockout playoff rounds. We just cannot catch a break in this competition after exiting on penalties. But in the Coppa Italia, we're still alive, and it's Inter Milan again that we meet in the semi-final this time. Domestically though, we've been unstoppable. Just 1 loss in 26 games, and we take the top spot from Roma, and this team's finally starting to show their killer instinct. We eventually put Inter to bed in the semi-final of the Coppa Italia, beating them over both legs, and now their rivals AC Milan await us in the final. We've even opened up a 9-point lead above Roma with 4 games to go, which means 1 more win and the title is ours.
Nice.
And we went and done it. Champions of Italy yet again, this time just ahead of Roma, fully deserved this season as well. But what came next was pure footballing carnage, a cup final versus AC Milan, and the score 5-0. 5 different goal scorers as well: João Pedro, Ngubo, Zaire Emery and Rodrigo Batista, with the other goal being an own goal from AC Milan's defence. It was a perfect performance, which was topped off by the fact that Trubin, the goalkeeper, won man of the match for making 8 saves in the game. Rodrigo Batista had a breakout season, 28 goals, a real presence. The kid is now a man and a nightmare for defenders, just like Gabriel Batistuta. Not all roses though, because quite a quiet one in terms of development for Rui Silva, who still put in a good amount of goals this season. But this year, this was our statement: league and cup double dominance, and for the first time it feels like we've built something truly elite. This summer was a quieter one in comparison to previous years, because there's no players I want to sell and the finances aren't exactly great right now. So straight into the season, and we had a tricky start but picked up wins against Lazio and a 4-1 win over Inter Milan. But what an entertaining season by the halfway point, with 3 of us on 48 points, but with Inter playing a game more than ourselves and Roma. Finally a season in Europe where we might get somewhere, as we've reached the quarterfinals with Porto to play. And at times in this tie we were absolutely on fire and playing really well. But by that point we were already 3-0 down and find ourselves out of the Champions League yet again. This would mean, to complete our challenge, we would need to win the Champions League in the final 2 seasons or fail. But for a season 8, it was just the league title we were going for. That's because Napoli eliminated us from the Coppa Italia semi-final stage, but thankfully in the Serie A, we have a 3-point advantage going into the final 4 fixtures. We had the easiest run of fixtures too out of the title candidates, and we won all 4 games remaining emphatically as well, to lift a Scudetto trophy for a 3rd time. So yet another league title, but my main concern is that Champions League with 2 seasons left and 0 semi-finals. We have the right man in Batista though, as a world-class striker, and he bagged 30 goals this season. The development of Perotta is particularly pleasing too, but I'm thinking of bringing him more central next season. After 6 very good seasons with us, we say goodbye to Mads Bistrup, who we decided to sell to Juventus for £48 million. The only signing through the door was a Paraguayan striker in Carrera, who we got from Como for 20 million, and that's because of a change of system was needed. Yes, I mentioned bringing in Perotta in a more narrow position, and we've gone for a narrow diamond, but still allowing Perotta to drift wide by sticking him in that Mazzala role, which I think he will thrive in. And that's already proven to be a fantastic switch, with 3 wins from 3 in our opening fixtures, and Perotta himself instantly becoming such a danger to defences, while they are occupied with other stars in our team. Something told me that at least domestically we were onto something with this narrow diamond, as we won 18 out of our first 20 matches. We even overcame Arsenal in a 4-0 win in the second leg of the round of 16 in the Champions League. The real test was yet to come, as we then had to face PSG in the quarterfinals. Once again we were there to defy the odds though, and Perotta just could not stop scoring. And we made light work, defeating a very good PSG team across both legs 4-1 to go to our first semi-final, with the opponents being Manchester City, and I was expecting a tough contest, but Perotta opened the scoring within 6 minutes and we took a 3-1 lead to Manchester. And we could prioritise the actual fixture itself because our league form was so good, and we should have the league wrapped up too. We came away from the Etihad once again winners, 2-1 on the night and 5-2 on aggregate, to face another English team in the final. We got the league done and dusted once again, so we could put our sole focus on potentially winning our Champions League against Chelsea. And we could not have asked for a better start, as within 18 minutes we take the lead through Batista. Only for just a minute later, almost from kickoff, we scored a second goal through Dybala. Chelsea weren't out of it yet though, as they scored on the half-hour mark with a cracking strike. But even still, just before half-time, João Pedro is scoring our 3rd goal, and we held on to the 3-1 lead until the 91st minute, when we finally scored a 4th to cap off an amazing night. Fiorentina's first Champions League trophy, and it keeps our mission alive. And in that moment as well, we jumped from 6th place to the most reputable team in the world. Another challenge ticked off. With a big thanks to the likes of Batista, who was superb this season, scoring 35 goals, Barotta, who is still only 20 years old and incredible, assisting 34 goals from that Mazzala position. And both fullbacks deserve a shout out too for providing width and allowing us to still be dangerous. In terms of Rui Sosa though, he has dropped into a more defensive midfielder role. Not quite Rui Costa, but it's still a Portuguese midfielder who is in our first 11. It was once again a quiet transfer window with just Andre Santos coming in for a free transfer, as well as Mario Quinta, who is a very fast and agile centre-back we signed from Porto. Sticking with the diamond formation, I think we keep Quinta playing as many games as possible in that position. This is the 10th and final season, remember. And once again, we're off to a fantastic start in the league this season. But of course, it's the Champions League that matters most, and we avoid the knockout playoffs with a solid 4th place finish in the league phase. And it was business as usual as we breezed past Roma 5-0 in the round of 16. Next up could be a tricky one though, because in the quarterfinals clash we have to face Liverpool. With a back and forth first leg where both teams were showing their attacking threat, and there was 5 goals scored in Florence, but 3 of them went into Liverpool's net, meaning that we take advantage going to Merseyside. And from a very entertaining game to a boring 0-0 in the second leg, which we will absolutely take. Once again, that puts us up against Manchester City in the semi-final, and we came from behind to lead the first leg 2-1, which was the same result in the other semi-final between Real Madrid and Bayern Munich. With a 2-0 win at the Etihad though, the stage was set and it's back to the finals, and this time we faced Bayern Munich. Domestically, we dominated the league. We were outstanding, but we still somehow flopped in the cup final, losing to Empoli. But here we go, the important one. Can we complete the challenge? It's Champions League final time. Side note though is that none of our players won the Ballon d'Or after last year's win. Once again though, the final was incredibly entertaining, even the 0-0 first half, but eventually Bayern Munich took the lead on the 56th minute. We had to wait a while, but Yıldız's free kick brought us back level. This took the game to extra time though, where Barotta scored an absolute banging goal, which could potentially win it for us. And this was then confirmed when Batista scored in the second half of extra time to make it 3-1. Bayern did score a late second, but still couldn't find an equaliser. And there you have it. We have completed our mission. Back-to-back Champions Leagues, at least 4 Serie A titles, 5 in total, all done with an Argentinian striker and a Portuguese attacking midfielder. Just how I wanted it to happen.